Two new colors are introduced with the M2 MacBook Air. Let's unbox and check out this Starlight one and talk about my thoughts after a month of using it. Hi, this is David of Tech for Baba, a channel I share my experiences on how technology enhances my time with kids and family as a dad. If this is your first time here, welcome. Please consider subscribing to the channel. M1 MacBook Air has been the laptop I've been recommending to my family and friends since it was introduced in November 2020. In today's video, let's unbox and check out this new Starlight M2 MacBook Air. See how it compares to the M1 MacBook Air, and if I will be recommending the M2 MacBook Air over the M1 after a month of using it. The M2 MacBook Air comes in the typical Apple laptop package with a plastic wrap. Satisfying as usual to tear it off without using a tool. The box has the profile of the Air to show off how thin it is. There it is. Thin and light indeed. A color matching Starlight MagSafe charging cable. The usual documents. And color matching Starlight stickers. Lastly, I picked the new 2-port 35-watt charger. The most obvious difference is the new design language. For the first time, the MacBook Air has been redesigned with a new body shape. It no longer has a wedge shape with a thicker back and a taper-thin front. The M2 MacBook Air's body is like a dieted 14-inch MacBook Pro. It has the same thickness throughout. It's actually thinner at only 0.44 inches than the thickest part of the M1 MacBook Air at 0.63 inches. Putting them on top of each other, the width is the same and the M2 is a little bit deeper, about 0.1 inches. But the M2 MacBook Air is a bit about 0.1 pound lighter at 2.7 pounds. After a month of using it, I'm still not sure if I prefer the classic wedge look or the new refresh look. Both look and feels thin and light. The M2 MacBook Air feels a bit thinner when I pick it up. What I do prefer though is this new Starlight color. It's a much more calming, comfortable, light gold color. What do you think? I also like the new dark midnight color, but am concerned about fingerprints and the dark color rubbing off around the ports. After a month of use, the Starlight color still looks new without needing much wiping and cleaning. The second obvious difference is the display. Both are still the same quality Retina display with P3 white color and True Tone. But the display on the M2 MacBook Air is a bit bigger at 13.6 inches. Like the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros, the bezel is now thinner, but there is also the notch, which I'm used to by now, but it does cover up some icons when I open up too many apps. The display on the M2 MacBook Air is also 100 nits brighter. I have only noticed the brighter screen when I'm outside, which isn't often, but brighter is always better. Inside the new notch, the webcam has finally been upgraded from 720p to 1080p. It's about time. It's still not as good as the latest iPhone's front-facing camera, but the image certainly looks better than all the earlier MacBook Airs. The two keyboards type about the same. However, the function keys and the fingerprint sensor on the M2 MacBook Air are now full-size keys, which is nice. What I really like though is the trackpad is now a little bit wider on the new M2 MacBook Air. When I use the M1 MacBook Air, I often hit the left or the right edge of the trackpad when I move from typing in the trackpad back and forth. I no longer do that with the M2 MacBook Air. Just a little change, but this one made a big difference for me. The M2 MacBook Air has 4 speakers instead of 2, but they're no longer on the sides of the keyboard. They're now placed towards the hinge, firing through the venting holes and bouncing off the display. I do hear a difference, but can't decide which one sounds better. Here's a sample of the speakers from the M1 MacBook Air. and a sound clip from the speakers of the M2 MacBook Air. Which one do you prefer? Let me know in the comment section below. There's still 2 USB-C ports, and too bad they're both still on the same side. There's the addition of the MagSafe charging port, which is nice. It frees up the 2 USB-C ports when I need to charge the laptop. And for the first time too, the charging cord has body matching color. The only odd thing is the USB-C connector on the other end is still only in white. There's also a choice of the same 30-watt charger or the new 2-port 35-watt charger with the M2 MacBook Air. And there's an option to get the fast-charging 67-watt charger at a cost or free depending on the configuration. Last but not least, of course, there's the new M2 SoC inside, which has faster and more cores. I won't go into all the benchmark results as they're already everywhere on YouTube and internet. What I could say in the midst of all the discussions on slower single-chip SSD and the thermal throttling under prolonged heavy loads on this base M2 MacBook Air is I have seen the slower SSD transfer and memory swap speeds and thermal throttling slowdowns when I try to make them happen by using a lot of Chrome tabs, for example, while using a Pro app like Lightroom, Photoshop, or a video editor to export a lot of raw photos or long videos with many video streams and complicated transitions and effects. When I use this M2 MacBook Air for what it's intended, I believe, to do, day-to-day productivity work like writing emails or documents, browsing the web, conference calls, watching videos, even some casual photo editing and short, simple video editing. This M2 MacBook Air has felt about the same and often snappier than my base M1 MacBook Air. So do I now recommend the M2 MacBook Air to my family and friends who are light computer users, like my wife who uses her laptop to browse the web, email, FaceTime, Zoom, watch videos, maybe some of my YouTube videos?
Watch face on your Apple Watch? There's now an app for it.
Yes, I do, if spending $200 more is within their budget. It's a newer design with many incremental improvements over the M1 MacBook Air. Bigger and better screen, better camera, bigger function keys and trackpad, additional MagSafe charging port, more color choices, and a faster processor for the most part. However, these improvements are mostly incremental, so if budget is limited, the M1 MacBook Air is still a great choice now with even more discounts. There are also like new refurbished ones at great discounts from Apple directly. Check out my experience with one in the video I'll link here and below in the description. Now, for friends and family who are heavier computer users, especially those who use pro photo apps like Lightroom or Photoshop to process a lot of raw photos, or Final Cut Pro Premiere to create fancy and long videos, I suggest upgrading the M2 MacBook Air or the M1 MacBook Air for that matter to 16GB of memory and at least 512GB of storage. Now, doing so increases the M2 MacBook Air's price to $1,599, which is just $100 less than when the base 14-inch MacBook Pro goes on sale these days. The base 14-inch MacBook Pro also has 16GB of memory and 512GB of storage, and it's much more powerful with a much better screen, much better sound, and many more useful ports. Of course, it's also much heavier with less battery life. It then becomes the familiar technology trade-off between power and portability. Thanks for watching. If you find any part of this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Which laptop do you have or are planning to get? The brand new M2 MacBook Air, the M1 MacBook Air, or the base 14-inch MacBook Pro? I'd love to know why you went with the one or the ones you have in the comment section below. If you want to see more videos on how technology can enhance our life with kids and family, please subscribe and turn on the bell to be notified when I put out my next video. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember to cherish each moment.